Welcome to T.O.L Studios, and today in Lesson 18 we're going to basically look at the scale we just talked about, the D major scale. And again, we picked up an extra sharp, so we have two that are sharp. And again, that's also from following the whole step, half, whole, half. And what I'm going to talk about now is when we see this on the guitar, how we're going to do the same thing with the patterns, but how we're going to start that again, just like we did in the key of G. When we did this in the key of G, we saw that this was the E note when we played open, and in the key of G that happened to be the sixth note of that scale. And that's why I just recently told you when we did that scale, we did pattern 6. Okay, and then that's why when we start with the next one, since we're on the F sharp and the G, that was their 7 and 1. And see, that was the same thing we did in the key of C, it's just these were in a different spot. We would have played pattern 6 here in the C scale, because that was the A note, and this would have been pattern 6. But then that's why 7 and 1, because B and C. So basically, again, every time you start with one of these patterns down here, whatever you learned when I showed you in the key of C, whatever comes after it will be the same thing that comes after it. So it's what changes is which one do you start with down here. So in the G, we started with the 6. But that's why originally when I taught you the C scale, when we played that open E, that would have made E the third note of the C scale. And since this was right next to the F, we were calling this pattern 3 and 4, which it was different notes that we were doing. But then we learned 5 came after it. And then pattern 6. Okay, and then pattern 7 and 1. Then pattern 2. And like I always tell you, when we got to this 12th fret, we were back at what we started down here, but we were basically doing our pattern 3, 4. And this is again the C major scale. Now that was because E was the third note of that scale. In the G scale, this is the sixth note. That's why we were starting with the 6th pattern, which gave us our E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, then your D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And if that was pattern 6, that's why we now played at this position 7 and 1 because of the F sharp and the G. And that gave us this pattern, and this one will look like the pattern you've seen before. Okay, and then if that was 7 and 1 because of the F sharp and the G, then G, this is going to be A. So we would now play what always goes after pattern 7, 1, which would be pattern 2. It's just, like I said, when you learned it in the other scale, it was in a different spot. But this is the same pattern, pattern 2. And then after 2 would still come 3, 4. After pattern 3 and 4 would still come pattern 5. And again, that's because D, G, A, B, C, D, or whole step, half step, whole step. There's that D note. So that's pattern 5 in the key of G. And then that would have put us back on the E note because we're doing another whole step. And that would have been our good old pattern 6. But this would have looked normal because we can stretch back here. Again, these would be your open notes down here, so that's why we can't stretch back an extra fret to get what you're seeing here. If these are the open notes, I can't go any farther back when I'm down here. That's why we had to play that. When we got to that note, we had to stretch up and get it here, because we can't get it any farther back on this string. We'll kind of talk about that a little bit more. But okay, now that was the G scale, which we already talked about. The D scale, since this is our string again, the E note, we're just looking at what number is E going to be of the D scale. And that's going to be the second note. So the second note is E. So when we see that on the guitar, if this is E, then we're going to play pattern 2 here, which gives us our E, F sharp, G, A, B. Then for C sharp, we're going to have to do the same thing we did earlier with the F sharp. we can't reach back on the D string and go any farther, so I have to play it on this string. So if I know that's a B and then C, then I raise the C up and sharp it. So that's why we're, again, from the 6th string, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, then open D string. See, now we can do that note. Then the E, and we got to do the same thing here. We can't go back on the G string any farther, so we have to get the F sharp here. Now I can go to the 3rd string and hit it open. A, then I can hit my B, then I can get the C sharp here, because we're raising this one up, our C up to C sharp. And then there's my D, and then the 1st string open, then the F sharp, and then your G. Okay, now that was pattern 2. So if this is pattern 2, the next pattern is going to be 3, 4. And this note here is an F sharp and a G. When we look at our scale, the 3rd note is F sharp, and then F sharp goes up a half step to G. So the 3rd note, 4th note. So when you see that on the guitar, if I'm on F sharp, now I'm going to play good old pattern 3, 4, which we should have memorized. And you're going to run that up. And the reason it worked again is I started on the F sharp, which is the 3rd note. So I went F sharp, up a half step to G, then A, B, then that's why I went C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A. And as always, you should be able to say them backwards. A, G, F sharp, E, D, C sharp, B, A, G, F sharp, E, D, C sharp, B, A, G, F sharp. And again, that's pattern 3, 4, because F sharp is the 3rd note and G is the 4th note of our D scale. Okay, so if that's our 3rd and 4th note, and that's A, the F sharp and the G, we're going to go up to the A for our 5th note. So we had E, the open string, the 2nd note of the D scale. F sharp was going to be the 3rd note. G's the 4th note. Again, that's why this was pattern 3, 4, and why this first one was pattern 2. Now here, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to play pattern 5 because I'm starting on the A note, and A is going to be the 5th note of the D scale. So then we take this pattern, okay, and again it works because this would be A, B, C sharp, D, and then you've got your E, F sharp. Okay, so as you basically play these, they're always going in that same order. Pattern 5, which means now pattern 6 is going to go on the B note, and again that's because B is going to be the 6th. So if we take that pattern, it's going to look the same. And again, by now you have these memorized. You can just kind of see what I'm saying, follow the notes, put them there, just play through them. But just be smart enough. Don't do what I said I used to do. Make sure you eventually go through and say the letters B, C sharp, D, and just do it slow. You'll get quicker at it. So that would be pattern 6. Then that would put us here at 7 and 1 because C sharp and D, that's your 7th and your 1st note. And that's what we're doing in our scale, the 7th note, C sharp, D. Okay, so when you see that, that's why we got pattern 7 and 1. And we're going to play that pattern here. Okay, and then if I get to the 12th fret, now I'm going to be back on the E note, which is the 2nd note of the D scale. And that's what we started with down here at the open position. But down here now, it'll be able to look like the normal way we can stretch back and get these notes. And then we can kind of go back up. We just couldn't do that down there again because of the open notes. So that gives us the E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G. And then the same thing's going to apply. We're at the 12th fret, but if this is going to be pattern 2, then we go to 3, 4. We're back on F sharp and G, and we're going to play that pattern. And we're just going to continue all the way till you run out of room again. Okay, now the other thing I talked about in the key of C before, I had shown you directions that you can do these patterns. Like when we learned this, and I referred to this as a backwards diagonal. Then we took the vertical approach and did it this way. Then we eventually did the extended. I'm going to start showing you the past two scales, the D and the G scale, on this next lesson. And I'm going to break those down just so you see the same thing applies to those. And that what I'm trying to show you is every time you learn a major scale, if you can always go back to what you learned in the key of C first and realize all you're doing is moving it around for the different scales, then you can kind of memorize things a little bit easier. It helps your brain. I'll keep trying to explain it to you so you understand for surely why it works, but it is that easy. That's why a lot of good musicians that play by ear, they don't know all this, but they are smart, they hear it, and they're doing what I'm saying to do. They just follow their ear, and we'll work on that as well too. Alright, so I look forward to working with you on the next lesson. Thanks again for watching T.O.L Studios.